Hello and welcome to the Vineyard View. I'm your host, Ann Bassett, coming to you from MVTV, community television here on Martha's Vineyard Island. Today, my guest is Vivian Jemison, and she's going to talk to us about MVTV. She's going to talk to us about her life on the island. But I really want to talk about Black Lives Matter, and I'm going to talk to Michelle because she's going to tell me like it is. Michelle, thank you for being here.
Anne, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled. I've been looking forward to this. We've talked about this for a couple of months now, and now's the time. America is, I think, primed and ready to listen to what Black people have to say and to have Black people point out what is systemic racism in this country.
That's a good thing.
Yes, right.
Good.
Now, first of all, do you mind if I refer to you as Black? A lot of people really only want to be called African American. What do you think?
No, I like being called Black.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a 60s thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Largely because a lot of people defer to a negative connotation with the word, the color, and all of that. So I don't mind being Black because it's not negative.
Good. That's the way I feel. So now you and I have talked about how different our lives have been from the very beginning. I grew up on the island, which is a small, nurturing, and there is diversity, and that's how I grew up. And I talked to Bob Tankard, and we grew up sort of in the same bubble. You didn't. You grew up in the city. Tell us about city life.
Oh, well, I mean, growing up in Los Angeles, growing up in Hollywood proper, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, it's just a very different way of life. When I first, I lived there for 37 years, 35 years, and I did it all. I had a blast. I lived many different lives. I did everything I wanted to do. I had a really great time. I learned a lot of lessons. But the lifestyle there is always, 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. You don't ever really get a break. There's no downtime, and there's not a lot of support, and everything is overcrowded and overwrought. So it's just a kind of like a desolate, lonely place. So when I came to the Vineyard on vacation, I couldn't believe the lifestyle. The lifestyle is so simplistic in terms of your daily routine. It just really appealed to me in a huge way. And I actually thought, after my first summer here, I thought all small towns must be this wonderful, because I'd never actually been to a small town before. And I thought all small towns were awesome. And then I quickly learned when I left to another small town that they're not. And I hurried up and I came back. And I've been here for 13 years, and I love it here.
Well, that's a success story right there. But I want to go back to when you were in Los Angeles. You were a jazz singer. You were a performer.
Yeah.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Oh, it was wonderful. I graduated from Musicians Institute in Hollywood, and I play piano and sing jazz, and I was in several bands there. And it was just a lot of fun. It was something that I gravitated towards. When my mother passed away when I was 22, she was a vocalist, but she never had the energy to actually go for it. You have to have a lot of energy and chutzpah and tenacity to be in that realm. So when she passed away, I wanted to connect with her in some way, and we sort of had the same voice. So I wanted to sing, and so I did. Yeah, it was fun.
Okay, so how does a performer, a singer, and a pianist go from that to being a techie person and teaching school kids on Martha's Vineyard?
Well, the fun part about being Michelle is that I'm an analytical thinker, sort of any realm that you put me in. So for me, it's about teaching. I love to teach. Anything I've ever learned, I've always taught to other people. So I've always had that technical experience because throughout my, after my formative years, I was involved in corporate America. I was involved a lot with the administrative parts of business. So I always had that flavor for it, and it came very easily for me. So I'm sort of a left brain, right brain type of person. It's both. I'm very creative, I think. I'm very creative, but I'm also very analytical, and my mind works in a very tick-tocky sort of way. So I didn't even know that I liked children until I came to MVTV, and I started my first group of young people I started working with at Edgartown School. I told my boss at the time, I said, I'm going to dumb down the lessons so that they can understand this text that I'm talking about. And she said, don't do it. She said, kids get it.
Oh, yeah.
They get it if you talk to them straight and like they're human beings and they just are little sponges and they get it. And it's true. And I love kids, man. They're so awesome to be around, just to get out of your head for a second and really start to get back to that childhood way of looking at life. So it's a kind of a vacation of the mind to be around kids, I think.
Wow. Well, what you do, which is what any really, really good teacher does, is you see the kids for who they are, you encourage their talents, you get them to think, you give them confidence, you give them projects, you help them along the way, and then you have a finished product that they can see and put on television and show their family and their friends.
And the thing that I've actually learned about children and even teenagers is that I don't talk at them. I don't talk at them. That's something I never really liked when I was growing up. I've always been a mature person, even when I was a kid, but I didn't like to be talked at. I liked to be talked to and with. And so that was one thing I definitely take with me when I engage with young people, is that I talk to them on their own level with the things they can absorb and understand. But I talk, to them, not at them. So I think they actually notice that and they appreciate it. So they really do open up to me a lot.
Yes, they do. We live in a small community, and so word gets around. And so all I have to do in a room full of people sometimes is mention that, I do stuff on MVTV, and they, oh, do you know Michelle? Michelle taught me this and that. And, oh, yeah, you got some fame here, girl.
Oh, the kids are so great, and I've seen them sort of grow up from, elementary school and college, and it's just so wonderful. It's so wonderful, and they come back and visit me and tell me what they're up to, and a lot of them have actually continued their career in digital media, which, of course, that's all we consume now, so obviously a good road.
Yeah, exactly. Can I mention Chavonnet at this point? Chavonnet was your intern for years and years and years, went away, went to college, and is now working at MVTV.
And Steve knows he has me forever for hiring my daughter. I mean, she was the first one that I ever mentored. She came to me and asked me to be her mentor, and I had to really think about it. And I'm glad I did, because I realize now that, I have been through a lot in my life. I have learned a lot of lessons that I can impart to young people. And she was the first one. And, we've been tight at the hip ever since then. And now I have her right across from me, and nothing could make me happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. You both of your windows are open and you're chatting all day.
Yeah.
I hear you. Right.
Yeah, I give her advice all day.
Right.
I'm sure, solicited or not.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right, because you're looking out for her. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's just one person that I can think of that you've mentored and helped along. But just talking about MVTV and what goes on here, in the times of COVID, everything has changed. How are you coping with trying to teach? You can't go into the schoolroom anymore because the kids aren't in the schoolroom.
Correct. Right now what we're trying to do is to make sure the community knows that we're still here and that we're still supporting their stories and their opinions and their views and their backgrounds. And, just because we can't be in the same room doesn't mean that we can't achieve that. We already are continuing with our community outreach in regards to the kids. So, oral history projects, all of that. We're still moving forward with that. And we do it digitally. So it's kind of like part and parcel. It sort of goes together. It's unfortunate that we can't be in each other's space, because that's sort of part of the bonding process. But no, I think we're doing pretty well, and the kids just love coming here. I mean, anyone that comes to MVTV realizes that we're a family, and they become part of the family, so that, it just really feels like home here.
Right.
For a lot of people.
I'm glad you said that, because when you were talking before about how you don't talk at kids, you talk to kids and with kids. That's very, very true. There's very much, because you also teach me. I mean, you don't just teach kids. You teach everybody at every age. And you have an innate ability to teach at the level that the person is receptive to. And it becomes teamwork. You do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love learning.
Yeah.
I love learning. So the more questions you ask me, the more I'm learning. Because I don't always ask myself all the technical questions. I know what I know. But when you give me a new challenge, it becomes a learning experience for both of us. And it's, a lot of fun. And when I see that little light go off, then I can take you to the next level and to the next level. So it's just fun for me.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely to our benefit. Okay, so life goes on at MVTV and on Martha's Vineyard. But in the country right now, Everything is in a turmoil, and not just from COVID. We're talking about Black Lives Matter, which is getting a lot of coverage. What does the movement say to you? And your husband is very involved. Tell me about, as much or as little as you can, about the movement in the country and what you're seeing happening on the Vineyard.
You know, it's a loaded subject because in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of people feel like if you are a Black person and you support Black Lives Matter, that you're part of the Black Lives Matter organization, which could not be further from the truth. I don't know anyone in the Black Lives Matter movement, but my Black life does matter.
Yes.
So it's not really for me about this group of people that are doing these things. It's more about, this is actually just the message that we actually matter. We are not invisible, although we are treated as invisible people. So, it's unfortunate that that has been the history of America for so long, that when you protest racism is so in the soil of America that when you protest racism, people think you are protesting America. And I think that's really unfortunate. So in regards to the country, I think it's great that people are becoming woke. I think when Steve Jobs, when Steve Jobs came out with the iPhone, it was a deal breaker. It broke all the barriers that could have been set for us, against us, because the narrative in media surrounding Black lives or Black experiences were always skewed against us. So now that there are cell phones and we can tell our story unedited, people can see for themselves. And that is a blessing. Absolutely. Here on the Vineyard, I have to say, I do live in my little bubble. I'm well taken care of. I've not endured a lot of hardship in my life. I've had my ups and downs, but I dare to say that I'm an attractive person, so that always lets people off their guard a little bit when they think you're halfway decent looking, or you're a woman, so you're not as much of a threat, say, as a Black male or someone that you think is unattractive or overweight, or all of these labels that we put on people. So I've never really had a whole lot of tumultuous activity in my life, but that doesn't mean that I haven't been affected by it. The police have done things in my family, to my brother, to my mother, things like that I carry with me. So I know what it means to suffer at the hands of America's rules that they seem to change whenever they tend to apply or not apply to us. So for me here on the Vineyard, I do live in my bubble still. I'm kind of spoiled in a way. I'm sort of used to getting what I want. But that's not the case for everybody. And going to what my husband Eugene is doing in the community, sometimes it makes me a little nervous. It makes me very, very fearful. We have a lot of discussions about it, and unfortunately I try to put restraint on him, which is not fair to him. But I fear the backlash. I fear what would come next because of what I'm used to from white America when you get up off your knees. So I don't know why America feels like we should be on our knees forever. But now people are starting to notice that the foot has always been in our neck. And people realize now the microaggressions against us and the macroaggressions against us. And it happens all the time. Sometimes I put my blinders on in order to have a good day. Yeah. So, it's a choice that you make as a Black person, whether or not you're actually going to address some of the things that are happening to you. Do you have the patience? Do you have the energy? Do you have the strength to stand up for yourself in any particular situation? And what are you willing to sacrifice for that? Me personally, I have to say I'm very selfish. And I'm very fearful of that backlash and things that white people can and will do, and we've seen it in the past. So I get very anxious over a lot of things that he does because I don't want him to be persecuted for standing up. So for me, it's kind of a very sticky situation in terms of how much or how little I want to actually say in this community, because I believe that there's a lot of good people here. And I don't believe that the Vineyard is like most of the rest of the country. I think that the Vineyard is a beacon for the rest of how the country should behave to one another on a daily basis. That's one of the reasons I stayed here, because I know that I'm safe. I don't feel safe in America, but I feel safe here. So, it's kind of hard for Eugene, I'm sure, to say the things that are true, because not all of them are true of this particular environment, but it doesn't mean that we don't still experience those things. Ever since I've been living here, I've only been stopped by the cops once or maybe twice, but ever since we've been married for the last year, he's been stopped several times for so it's kind of like, okay, where do you say to yourself or to your community, hey, I matter. I matter. My life matters. My experiences matter. My everyday life matters. My opportunities matter, and all of that. It's a tough situation to be in.
Oh, I can only imagine. And it's interesting, this conversation. Just as you can't speak for all Black people, I can't speak for all white people. But I will say that I think that a lot of white people miss out on even trying to understand what Black Lives Matter mean. A lot of people say, well, all lives matter. And absolutely, in the big picture, that is true. All lives matter. Black Lives Matter is saying, wait a minute, look at one segment of our population, of our citizens, of our friends and neighbors, who are proportionately being targeted. Many, many more Blacks in jail. I don't have the statistics, but we all know many, many more Blacks in jail than, if a Black person gets caught, well, it used to be, back in the day, with a joint, they could go to jail for like 6 years, whereas a white kid would be taken home to mommy and daddy. That's true. Black people get stopped in neighborhoods just walking because somebody thinks they don't look as though they belong there. That has to stop. That has to be addressed. And that's what Black Lives Matter is challenging, right?
Absolutely. It's the funny thing about that is that, you could walk through a Black neighborhood completely naked and nobody's going to bother you. But if a Black person walks through a white neighborhood, you are in danger. There is no doubt about that. It's a shame. It's really a shame. I really would like to know what it feels like to truly be free. Like, I don't know. Like you said, you're not a monolith. You can't speak for all white people. I'm not a monolith. So I feel like it's sort of, it's disheartening when you know that you are a target, and it's hard to live that way. So I don't know what it's like to be free. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to live in my own skin, live with my own comfortable way, like you said, my culture or any of, I don't know what that's like. I only know what it's like to protect myself. That's what I know.
Wow. As you said, we've had very, very different lives. But, Black culture, I want to talk about Black. I've been very, very lucky in my life. As I said, I grew up, with Black friends. I have lots of Black friends. When I worked in Cambridge at Fred Stone Reprographics, the 3 guys in the back room who did the Oslid prints were a Black family, the Hughes brothers, and they were wonderful, and I loved them. And their sister babysat my kids, so I got to spend time with them. What was interesting is they spent a lot of time in Cambridge with white people. They worked with them, etc. And it wasn't until later on in the 60s that I got to experience Black culture. And there's a language, there's movement, there's an inclusiveness, there's music. When you're warmly welcomed into that, and I think so many Americans have just missed out. They just haven't had that privilege.
But at the same time, you have to always remember that there's a lot of Black culture in America, but we don't get the accolades. There's a lot of Black influence within the fabric of America dating back to, the inception. And so we just don't get the comeuppance. We just don't. So even some of the things that you may think are not, Black authored are, but we don't get those accolades. It just is not part of the plan.
Some people in this country are trying to change that. And I admit that, 1 month out of 12 doesn't make up for a lot.
The coldest month of the year and the shortest month. What's that about? Should be July.
Should be July. Okay, I hear you. But it is an education. I mean, I watch PBS every day. I do try to learn and to absorb a lot of things that, as you say, we didn't know, just didn't know. And see, I think it's our job. I think it's our job to know. I think it's our job to find out about the people around. We're all immigrants in this country. We all came from somewhere else, but we choose to identify ourselves as American. And as a result, we have to honor that, but we also have to honor where people came from. I have Asian friends, for instance. They don't have a month. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but they have their history. They know their history. We do not.
Ooh,
So that's
point.
the thing. They know their history. They have their country. They have a language. They have those things. We don't have that. So the black culture and the white culture are entwined and intertwined in such a way at the design of white people that there is no separation in my mind. The fact that Black people are always put on the last of the list is by design. It's by design that we are omitted from sitting at any table. We have to fight and claw and beg and all of that to have a voice at any table. And all of the other groups on the fringes benefit from civil rights action, period. That's Asian people, that's Hispanic people, that's the LGBTQA community. Everyone benefits from the civil rights movement from the 60s till now around the world. America is only made up of about 10 to 12% Black people. But from those efforts of those 10 to 12%, we make vibrations around the world in regards to what is right and what is fair. And that's only 10 to 12% of this population. So sure, they're afraid if we actually are heard, we can make a difference, because even with the foot in our neck, we are making a difference.
Wow, you just said all of that so well. You are very eloquent. Wow. Okay, no, really. And I knew you would give me things to think about, and I hope you're giving the audience things to think about. You're right. For instance, when we watched Skip Gates doing Finding Your Roots, and of course there was the book and then a series. I think that was a wake-up call to a lot of people. You don't know. You probably have no idea what part of Africa your ancestors came from, whereas Chinese people can go back sometimes almost 1,000 years with their family. Wow.
Well, the interesting part about that, it's interesting that you bring up Roots, because do you know I just actually saw that movie for the first time within the last year because I was never able to sit through it.
It's too painful.
I can't sit through it.
I hear you.
Yeah, it's difficult to sit through. And when you talk about the history of African Americans or Black people in America, and Trump is trying to say that including Black history in our history books is teaching people to hate America, is so offensive, because we are part of America. Our story is part of the story of America. And if you decide to hate America based on the truth, then that's your own personal reaction. That doesn't have anything to do that we're trying to teach hatred. We're trying to teach what is real. Yeah, I know all about white history. I know all about the Revolutionary War. I know all about that. But I don't know anything about the contributions that Black people have made to this country unless I dig and dig and dig. And now we have the internet, so it's all at your fingertips. But when I was growing up, it wasn't.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't. So it was not there.
Yeah.
It was not there. So I think it's a very offensive, when people sort of say, why should we include that in the school? That's what's being said right now online. Why should Black history be included in the school? Because we built this country.
Yes.
Why shouldn't it be a part of the school?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I read a lot, and I'm trying to keep up, with current thing. And one of the things that comes up is reparations. And I'll tell you, whoa, I never owned slaves, and nobody in my family ever owned slaves. What do you mean reparations? Does that mean that every man, woman, and child that's Black, gets a certain amount of taxpayer money? And it turns out that no, that's not what reparations are at all. Reparations are trying to level the playing field. Reparations mean, no, let's put aside some money for doing just what you said. Let's encourage Black artists. Let's encourage Black authors. Let's encourage Black creative people. Let's get them in the mainstream. That's what we need. Yes.
And I think people forget what the word reparations really means in the dictionary. It means to repair.
Right.
It means to repair, to right the wrong that has been done. You know, when the Nazis did what they did, there have been reparations.
Oh, absolutely.
For that.
The Germans,
and that wasn't even here.
Yeah, right.
Right? So it's unfortunate that even that alone, even the conversation of any sort of consideration for Black people is met with such contempt. Even to have a Black Lives Matter sign anywhere is met with contempt. You know, there's a lot of people on the Vineyard that are wonderful, wonderful people, and I see Black Lives Matter signs everywhere. But even today, someone started to troll me on Facebook over a sign. And it's unfortunate, you know, because it's like they said, oh, this is on public property. Well, they can take guns to public property, no problem, as long as there are white guys behind it. But don't let a Black person try to put up a sign anywhere that you say it shouldn't be allowed. And the policing of Black people is out of control. The control over Black people's bodies is out of control. Yeah. It's too much, you know. And when you think white supremacy, a lot of people think, okay, the guys down in the South with the white hoods. No, that's not what we're talking about. No. We're talking about the superior attitude towards Black people, that we need to be watched, that we need to be policed, that we need to be told how to do everything. Like, we need to be told how to protest. We need to be told, you know, how to live. And that's the arrogance that I think a lot of Black people are just tired of. It's tiring. We are tired. And it's just the dedication to the unfairness and the unevenness in America. It's just nauseating. And it's exhausting.
Yes. Yes. And you have to live it every day.
And I'm very blessed in my life because, like I said, I haven't, you know what I mean? I've never had to deal with a lot of the things that Black men have to deal with because I'm not looked at as a threat. But you know what? Those gloves have come off. They are now beating Black women. They are now killing Black women. They are now, you know, now it doesn't even matter that you're a woman.
Really?
Absolutely. Sandra Bland.
Oh, well,
right?
Yes, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Breonna Taylor.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter now that you're a woman and you're not a threat. It just matters that they feel like you're a threat or you fit the description and they just decide what's going to happen to you. And that's the thing that we're just really tired of, and just to want to be heard and have our stories told. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Yes. No, having one story told, which is what we do here at MVTV. Everybody that I talk to on my show, you know, I'm simply trying to facilitate them telling their story. That's what we do here. You do it all the time, and you do it with young kids right up to elderly people to try to have them tell their stories. And everybody needs to be encouraged to listen to other people's stories.
That's how we learn. That's how we learn is by you know, having empathy for one another, for looking at it from a different perspective, from leaving our bubble and saying, you know what's going on there? What happened there? Why is this an issue? Or is there an issue? You know, a lot of people, and the online thing drives me insane because a lot of people just come to a snap judgment or a snap, you know, this is what you should be doing, that the message just gets lost.
Yeah. Now, I haven't been on Facebook in a year. I just don't have it can be toxic. Islanders Talk, I've never been on Islanders Talk. I heard about it, you know, when it first started, and I said, I am never going there. And
well, Lori Robinson Fisher does an amazing job at moderating. I don't know why she does it. I don't know why she does it. I don't know how she does it. I mean, there are thousands of people on there doing all kinds of things, and I applaud her for even continuing it. I would have taken that page down a long time ago.
Yeah. I think of it as being extremely toxic, and so I just avoid it. There are so many divides in this country, you know, the way people communicate, you know, in the age barriers, et cetera, and so forth. This also brings up another thing. I have often felt that some white people have a sort of blanket condemnation of what they think is black. And what they're really talking about is class.
Mm-hmm.
There's a class divide in this country that nobody wants to talk about, and I think that it needs to be addressed. I think it absolutely needs to be addressed. I hope that there are some people today listening to you saying, whoa, she's educated, she's smart, she's articulate, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right?
But the other part of that, Anne, is, I love you and you love me, and we've known each other for many, many years. But the other part of that is even the poor white people get a better opportunity.
That's
you know what I
true.
mean? So it is a
Yes.
class thing, absolutely. But it really is about, people's prejudices and their biases against black people. Because, like I said, even poor white people, get a better shake, in my opinion.
You're right. Of course they do.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, okay, what are the solutions?
Yep.
What?
But going back to the reparations of saying, I didn't do this to black people, I didn't enslave people, I didn't beat anybody.
Yeah.
I was never a slave. But it
Right.
does not mean that I don't have post-traumatic stress,
Whoa.
right?
Absolutely.
Because it is handed down through your genes.
Yes.
It is taught to you when you are black. Your parents sit you down at a certain age and explain to you what it means to be black, and explain to you how you must move through the world to be safe. This is something you learn at the tender age of 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, especially with young black men,
Yeah.
at a certain point, they go from, oh, isn't he a doll? Isn't he cute? To isn't he the prey? And he needs to be distrusted. So when does that shift happen? And it's really scary, and it's unfortunate. My husband has children. He has a 7-year-old that I call my own son. And I fear the day that people start saying, instead of saying, oh, isn't he cute, to, now grasping their purse or locking the door. That is I don't want to have that conversation with him, because he doesn't even know what color is.
Yeah. Right.
He doesn't even know, and that's the place where we want to be, but pie in the sky over here. I'm an optimist.
Yeah, right. I'm glad to hear you say that, because, right. So what are solutions that you see? What would you like to see happen in this country, on this island, with people that you're talking to, as in terms of awareness? How would you like to raise awareness?
Doing what we are doing right now.
Thank you.
What we are doing right now is to talk to each other, to listen to each other, to ask the questions, to listen to the responses without waiting to speak. One of our producers here, Allison Fraser Hayden, and I, we're coming up with a show. We're fleshing it out now to do just that, because I'm trying to figure out a way to control my narrative. I feel like online you can't control the narrative. It's just all this bickering back and forth, and people are very, very courageous behind the keyboard and all this. Yeah. But I really want to get a video / podcast going where we can invite some members of the community to come in and really, say what's on their heart, what's on their minds. Now, having said that, I am in a demographic almost unto myself here. There's not a lot of women in my particular demographic here year-round on this island. Yeah. So it's kind of a hard deal in that regard. There's more black people that come here in the summer, so maybe there'd be more content there. But I'm hoping that people will want to come and just talk and really talk to each other in a civil tone, and to try to think of ways that we can support each other. I think that it goes without saying that black people support this country. It doesn't matter all the things that this country has done against black people. We still love this country, and we don't even want revenge. We don't even want revenge. We just want fairness.
That says it all, really, right there. Good for you. I am so appreciative of your being this open and being able to say these things, to an audience.
Well, the funny thing is that in most black households, just like the household I was brought up in, most black households do not teach racism, period. That's not something that we do. We don't say that person, stay away from those white people because no. It's always the reverse. So, I wasn't raised thinking white people are evil or they're out to get me. I wasn't raised like that. America showed me that. My mom didn't show me that. She didn't teach me that. My grandma didn't teach me that.
Yeah.
So it's something that I actually was able to see from the systemic racism that really is real. And it's funny because when you suffer in silence, it becomes the normal. It becomes the norm when you suffer in silence.
All right, you can't suffer in silence. Friends of mine know that. I have a dear friend who was raised in the South. When I first started hanging out with him and his family, he said the N-word just offhand one day. And I was shocked. And I stood up and said, I can't stay in the same room with you if you're going to use language like that. And he was shocked. For him, he hadn't said anything that, he hadn't heard every single day, for 20 years growing up in the South. And he didn't mean anything by it, but it started a conversation. We have to start the conversations, and you have to stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah, and that's like so confusing for me because I just don't see why it's so hard to be fair. I don't see why it's so hard to be considerate. I don't see why you would ever judge somebody based on the color of their skin. I truly don't understand. I truly, at my core being of beings, I truly don't understand that. The power thing, okay, I get it. But the things that white people say to each other behind closed doors, I'm sure I wouldn't want to hear. But they're not saying it behind closed doors anymore. They're kind of saying it online now. So everybody has their biases, right? And it's up to us to communicate with one another and to have compassion for one another's perspective in order to gain some understanding to make traction. I mean, it's been 400 years of this.
Yes.
It's been a long time. It's about time that people just open their eyes and say, this is wrong.
Right.
This is wrong. It's not fair. Every faction has their good and bad. There's positive and negative in everything, but it does not mean that it's the whole.
Right.
It's not the sum of everyone and everything. So the picking apart, like the guy today online with the sign, he had a problem with the sign. The picking apart, it's like you said, saying all lives matter instead of black lives matter or blue lives matter because black lives, first of all, there is no blue life. Right. But I get the connotation, but it's kind of like saying, when somebody says, I see no color, I take offense to that because you're saying now that you don't see my story. I don't see color, and that makes you what exactly?
Right.
So that makes me invisible.
Yeah.
Yet still. But you think you're saying the right thing. So it's kind of confusing, I think, for a lot of people. And again, I say, Black people are not trying to shove this down anyone's throat in terms of what it should look like. It's more like, give us a chance to be at the table when these decisions are being made about our daily life. Oftentimes when they're making laws, right, there's no Black faces at the table. And it's about us. There was a time back, when the Constitution was written, there were slaves when the Constitution was written.
Yeah.
And slavery continued for over 100 years beyond that. So we were looked at as 3/5 of a human being. 3/5 of a human being. So it justified the brutal murders. It justified those things. But this is a Constitution. So we know that it was not written for us. We know it's not for us. So we're trying to say, okay, America, kind of like Frederick Douglass said in his speech, live up to the promise. Live up to it. And we're going to force you to do that. And it's unfortunate that some of us have to die in order to be heard, just to be treated fairly. It's just unconscionable in my mind.
Wow. And it is. And we all need to challenge not only each other, but ourselves in terms of, what is equality? Civil rights are for everybody. How does that translate to my life, to me, to what I think and say today? What do I tell my kids? Inclusiveness. How do we get more inclusiveness in our lives?
I watch a lot of comedy, stand-up comedy. And there's this one gentleman that said, we're not saying that Black lives are more than yours or whatever. We're just saying we want to matter. We're not saying that you don't matter. We're not saying anything. We just want to matter. That's not asking for a lot. And I'm hoping that through conversations like this, through, hopefully like talk shows that we're going to create here on the island, that we're able to, come together, because the island is a special place.
Yes.
It's a very special place. And there's a lot of amazing, wonderful, warm-hearted, genuine people here. And I've seen that and I've lived that. I've experienced it. I've never even known the definition of community until I got here.
Wow.
I never even knew what that meant, really, on a day-to-day, but now I do, and I revel in it, and it makes me feel good to be a part of an environment that actually looks out for each other. And I know so many people on this island that are just good people, but this thing that is happening, right, is flushing out all of those people who have those latent biases against us and who feel superior. It's not the guys with the white hoods.
No.
It's the people that won't hire my husband. It's the people who say, he's wrong for putting up a sign. Right?
Yeah.
It's those people that we want to bring out of the shadows, bring out from behind the keyboard, and come, like my husband says, come let us reason together. Humanity on one accord is what we're trying to achieve. Again, not revenge, not taking more. Not everybody gets a check, not that. It's just the listening and the caring, the empathy is what we want. And action would be great too.
Absolutely. And a level playing field.
Yeah. That's going to take a very long time. I don't know that I'll ever see that in my lifetime, to be honest. I hate to be pessimistic in that way, but I do think that there's been a lot of really great strides, even, as of right now. There's a lot of people out there fighting the good fight and putting their life on the line in order to be able to be considered. And I applaud them for that. Now, for me personally, clearly digital media is my mainframe at this time. So I know how to control my own narrative, and that's what I'm going to try to do, and bring people in that are willing to talk openly and honestly about, hey, I don't really know this, and I never knew that about the contributions of Black people or the plight of Black people or the trials and tribulations that we go through or have been through silently. And I appreciate being here. I appreciate talking to you, because it's important. It's important. It's very important because little Ethan, like I said, the 7-year-old, my husband's 7-year-old, I really hope that he does not have to be afraid to leave the house at night.
Exactly.
Like to be able to walk down the street,
Right.
I when I first moved here, it was about, I'd say 11 years ago. I was still pretty new on the island. I really didn't still know how to get off the island and go somewhere, because it takes so many steps. So I wouldn't go too far. I would only go so far. And I decided for my birthday, I was going to take myself to Boston. And I did not know the racist history of Boston. I had no idea. I had no clue. I'm so in my own bubble. I'm so in my own world.
You have to listen to Michael Che. He'll tell you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the one who made the joke. Yeah. So I did not know. And then when I went for my birthday, I got myself a nice 5-star hotel. It was all by myself. And I decided to go get my hair done and have, my champagne. And I decided to go shopping and all of that. And everywhere I went, I was made to feel like I did not belong.
Whoa.
It was shocking to me because I did not know.
Yeah.
When I went there with my white friends, all was good. So I thought it was going to be fine. But when I went on my own, it was a completely different story. And funnily enough, where I felt comfortable is, my tribe of people. Not that I'm gay, but that's kind of like my tribe because I was also in Hollywood. So that's, I've had gay friends ever since I was in the 6th grade. So it was there when I found an LGBTQ bar is when we just had a blast. And I actually felt comfortable and I felt welcome and wanted. So I did find, a comfortable place there. But I was really disheartened by that. And I will not go to Boston for any reason. I will not spend my money there. I only want to go through there.
Yeah.
No. I'm good. Yeah.
but you found a place where you were comfortable.
Absolutely.
That's a great story.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, now that just makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
Yeah, we sang and played piano all night long. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Your tribe. Yeah. I love that. Okay, wow. Okay, so what have we not said? How would you like to wrap this up?
I would like to say that, if you would want to have a civil conversation, don't hesitate to check with me on Facebook. If you want to bring your ideas to the table on how we can start to break down the walls of communication, because I do think that social media is very toxic and it has real life consequences in this very moment. And so many people are addicted to it. And it's like a positive and a negative. It's a good and an evil. It's helping people to communicate, but it's also causing real world consequences in this very minute. So I think that people need to step away from social media to a certain degree and talk face to face. There's a certain compassion that happens when you speak to each other in the same room that I think we all miss now, especially with COVID and everything happening, and now the face is shielded and we're all so divided, and now we can't touch each other, now we can't be together. It just really piles it on for everybody to be even more separated. But it's also shining a light because now you're forced to be at home, just like the George Floyd incident. I don't think that would have been such a positive reaction in terms of people being made aware of what really goes on. I don't think that would have had the reaction it did across the world if it not were for COVID and everybody was at home watching the TV and they got to see it over and over and over and over. If we were allowed to just go back to our regular lives as we normally do, I don't think it would have had the same result around the world. So, COVID is a horrible thing, but it also created a good thing in the regard that people had to sit and watch and really think about what they were looking at.
You're absolutely right. And you're right about one of the things I missed with people being masked. You can't read expressions. It's very difficult. And I think I miss hugging the most. And I had a traumatic thing happen to me about 8-10 weeks ago. And I was in this building and you were here and you said, come here, and gave me a big hug. I will never forget that. I mean, I still get choked up. Bless you. Thank you. You are a dear, and you have been wonderful to come here and say all of this. I appreciate you so much for doing this and being so open and so honest.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate MBTV. And I got to tell you, I have been so supported in this environment. I've never been so supported in my life. Stephen, yes. Anne, you, the board, our members, so I know this is a good place. And, my husband has said it, this is a beacon. This place is a beacon for what the rest of the nation can be. This is it, even though everything's not perfect, but it really is darn close. We're darn close. So I'm really hoping that those few people that have the negative input and the biased ingredients just stop for a second and really think about what they're fighting against. Out of fear and anxiety, it creates a lot of confusion and misinformation. And I think if we just lay down that confusion, lay down the anxiety, and just be open. Not all Black people are with pitchforks saying, you're a horrible white person. No. Clearly so that's the thing, right? Is that we wanted to be at the table for so long. There's a lot of people that feel like, well, we should just, section off. And have our own, sort of the Malcolm X idea, section off and have our own and be segregated. But that's not going to make any real progress. No. We've always wanted to be a part of America. We've always supported America. We built America.
That's right.
The Constitution really is just a blueprint. Who were the ones that were actually building it? Who were the ones that had their foot in the soil with the shovel in the hand? That was Black people. So I feel like, we deserve a chance to just be heard and acknowledged and not immediately vilified. So I feel like I really want to bring those voices to the table, and it's not going to be pretty, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to be confusing, but it's going to be for the greater good.
Exactly.
If people just realize we are not laying blame, we are not laying shame. And again, I'm not speaking for every Black person, but I think that, you know, a lot of white people feel like, you know, if all these horrible things happen, I'm not horrible. Well, we're not saying that you're horrible,
Right.
but we're just
Right.
saying that these things still affect us
That's right.
every day. And I want to be able for my husband to walk down the street and feel comfortable in any part of America. And sadly, that's just not true.
That's just not true.
So I appreciate the different digital media platforms that are happening right now. I appreciate your platform. I appreciate the platform that I've been given so much freedom to have here on this island and beyond. And I'm really hoping that this dialogue continues.
Well, so do I. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Ann. You know I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. Okay. I'm just going to say goodbye to the audience. I hope people are watching this, and I hope people are going to reach out to people of other color, other cultures, other religions, get some diversity in your own life. It will enrich you. Thank you.